Today I'll be showing you how you can make a bracelet loom out of cardboard, yarn, scissors, glue, and a ruler. Super easy, really simple to do, and very fun. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our loom. To make your loom, you want to use a piece of cardboard that is as long as you need it to be. I want to do a cuff bracelet design, which means that it doesn't have to go all the way around my wrist. So I'm going to use this smaller piece of cardboard, but you could cut off a bigger piece of cardboard, whatever length you needed it to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to use my ruler and grab a pencil. And on one side of my cardboard, I am going to make notches or little lines that I will then cut to be notches. I'm going to make my lines about 1/4 of an inch apart. On the ruler, 1/4 of an inch is the distance from here to here, not a 1/2 inch, which would be that distance. I'm sorry, it's the distance from here to here, not a 1/2 inch, which would be here to here. Okay, but right there to there. So starting on one side, I am going to make 6 1/4 inch marks. So this space that I've cut, this is about 4.5 inches. So I'm going to start at least an inch out and make 1/4 inch marks. And I'm going to make 6 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm actually going to make a few more just so you can get an idea of how you do a larger loom. And then I'm going to switch it over to the other side, and at about the same point, or you could do it this way. You could draw a line straight down, letting you know where your starting point would be, and then just measure your 1/4 of an inch marks from there. And the reason why you're going to make marks on the top and the bottom of your loom is because you want to have areas or spaces where the thread or the yarn can go through. So your next step is to then, where you made those marks with your pencil, to now make slits. They don't have to go super deep or super far. It just has to be enough for your thread or yarn to go through and stay there. Now again, I made more than 6, so I can space this out however I would like. There we go. The next step is you need to make some strips of cardboard. They don't have to be any particular size. They do need to be the length of what you are weaving. So my 6 strings in this instance. So once I make one, I'm going to use that as my guide to make the other. And you notice that this is not super straight. The pieces don't need to be super straight for what we're going to use them for. And I'm going to need 4. So right now I've cut, with this cut, that'll be 2. Now I'm going to use this one to be my guide for the next 3, and use that as my guide for the last, and that will be 4. Okay. Now I take my loom, well actually now I take my glue. You could use glue stick if you like. I am going to now glue 2 of my cardboards together. Any of the 2, doesn't matter, as long as they are the same size. So I'm going to take glue and put it on one side of a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to find its partner. And I'm just going to glue those two together so that they're a little bit thicker. I'm going to do the same thing to my other two pieces of cardboard. Find its mate and glue them together. I'm just going to cut that little piece off, okay? Now, once these are dried, you're going to take your loom base and you're going to take your cardboard and you're going to glue your cardboard below where you've made the slits on both sides. So I would say maybe 1/4 of an inch away. And I'm going to put the glue on my cardboard. And then I am going to attach it to my loom and apply pressure. I'm now going to turn the loom around, and the other additional piece, I'm going to glue that down. Same as before, about 1/4 of an inch below the slices or the slits that we've made in the cardboard. You want it to be straight, and so you hold it down and put some pressure. You've essentially created a loom. So now what you need to do is you need to take your yarn, once everything's dry, and begin to prepare your loom to be able to weave. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn. I'm using gray, but you can use any other color. And you can also use embroidery thread, which I used a combination of both. You'll see that this is the yarn. It's a little bit thicker, and these are the embroidery threads. They're a little bit thinner. I want, for my loom and to show you, I want to use the yarn as my string so that you can really see how I do the process. I'm afraid with the embroidery thread it might be too tiny for you to really see. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make a loop knot. Okay, and I'm going to take my loop knot and I'm going to insert it into the very first slat or slot or dash that I made into my loom. Okay, I want to put it so that the knot is on the back side of the loom, and then I'm just going to take my yarn and go across the loom into the slot, across the way from it. I'm going to go around the back of my loom, go into the next slot, the front of it. I'm going to continue with my yarn and go across the loom, go into the second slot in the front, go down the back, come out into the third slot in the front, go into the third slot here. Now, you want to make sure that when you pull it tight, you don't pull it so tight that the cardboard has to bend and won't stay straight. Come around the back. Go across again, come around the back, find the next slit, go across again. And you can do this as many times as you like. For my bracelet, I did it 6 times across. This loom has room for more, so we're just going to do it for more so you can see what the setup looks like. And I just continue this until I have completed filling up my slots with the yarn. Coming around the back each time. Almost done. Okay. And then what I do is I just take my last piece of string and I cut it and I knot it in a very loose knot behind the next string. And a very loose knot so I can take it out. Okay? And so now my loom is set up to go. So the first thing you want to do is you want to decide if you want to use yarn or if you want to use embroidery thread or whatever it is that you have. If you have regular thread, you can use that. It will just take you longer to make your loom. So I'm going to start with my embroidery thread. So I'm going to start with my pink because I already have used it for this other bracelet, but you can use any color you like. And my first piece of string, I am going to start below where the doubled cardboard was, and I'm going to tie my string in just a one loop knot. That means that I could take it out if I wanted to, but there's no reason for me to want to take it out. I can make it a better knot when I'm done. So then, with this loom, unfortunately, you can't work with really big pieces of yarn or thread that's been wrapped in like a big ball. You have to keep it fairly small because the space that you have to work in is fairly tight. So what I do is I take my embroidery thread and I wrap it up so I can more easily use it. And starting with my very first string, we'll call this over. Your vocabulary for this will be over, under, over, under, over, under. So this first string is over, so we're going to call this one under. And in order to make it go under, I just pull up the string. It's going to go over the next one, so I'm going to pull up the next one, alternate, and just skip one. Skip and skip. And when I'm done, I can raise them all to be in a straight line across. So you see I've gone over and then under this string and then over this string and then under this string, over, under, over, under, over, under. I'm now going to take my thread and do the exact opposite. Where I was over before, I'm going to be under, and where I was under before, I'm going to be over. And so again, just skipping every other string, come to the end. When you are done, when you get it to the other side, you don't want to pull super tight, because if you pull super tight, then you will have your it will squeeze in and change the shape, and we're looking to make a cuff bracelet. So we are going to want it to be straight across. Okay? So I pull the thread and I make it into a straight line. Now I'm going to just go back through, and every other one I'm going to pick up and put this in underneath. And when I get to the end, I move my thread up so that it's a nice tight weave. What you could do is you could take another piece of cardboard and cut it off. And use that piece of cardboard to make your thread stay tight. So, for example, I can put it over, under, just like how my thread was, and then push up. And that will straighten everything on that line. So now I'm going to go over this one, under, every other one. It's really smart if you start with an even number, then you're looking at over and under in the very same, it'll be easier to memorize if you have an even number of strings. And then we just loosen some more thread, come through. Again, every other one. As you learn to do this better or have more practice doing this, you will go much faster. So you can already see that we're beginning to see some weave actually happen to our design. And so if you want, you can then change colors for your design. You can change to a yarn that will change its texture. And so you can do all kinds of things to make it visually what you want it to be, as creative as you want it to be. So you're going to continue this and continue this until you have more of what looks like this. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish this off. I'll do one last weaving. So I have my thread. I go over, pick up every other string, and weave. When I'm done, when you're done with your bracelet, the project, I'm going to take my thread, wrap it around whatever string was at the end, and make a knot. And then I'm going to just do a double knot on it to make sure that it is tight. And I cut off my excess. Now, when you want to change the color, feel free to make a knot at the end where the two colors meet up so that you can then completely easily transition to the next color. Some people don't make a knot and just leave it loose and leave a little bit of string left over like this so they can knot it at the end. So when you're done with your project, you're going to go to the back and you're going to cut straight across. So here's going to be the front of my bracelet. That's going to wrap on my arm. This is going to be the back, or these are going to be the strings that I would tie it with. So I'm just going to go to the back and across here, just cut. I don't want to make any sudden movements there here now because I have to make sure that my weaving doesn't come off of this. I want to be careful, so I'm going to remove the threads from all the slits on one side. And now I'm going to, for every two, and that's another reason why I use an even number, for every two strings that are next to each other, I'm going to make 2 knots. So 1 knot there, and not super tight. I don't want to put any tension on the actual weave. There you go. Then these middle 2 strings. Make a soft knot and then a tighter one. And then this last one, you have to be careful in this step because your weave is very fragile. You've just taken it off of its loom that holds it tight, and so things can go a little nutty. So now I have my one side of my bracelet done. I go to the other side of my bracelet I pull my strings out of the slits and repeat the process of making the knots. So the very first two strings that are next to each other, I make one soft knot that goes close to the weave, and then I make a tighter knot the second time out. Again, I'm going to go to the next two strings, make a knot, knot's the tightest knot, and then I'll make my second one tighter. The last two, first knot a little softer, and then this knot much tighter. So now I essentially have my bracelet. I can cut off any excess strings and wrap it around. Now you can do however it is that you would like to have the end of your bracelet be, you can do. So say for example, I have these three. Since I have 6 strings, I'm just gonna put 2 quick braids. So I have 3 strings and 3 strings. I'm just going to braid very quickly. My piece is curled, so I'm going to start again. I'm going to put my glue on my thing to give it some sturdiness. And then I'm just going to do a 3-piece braid. And I'm only putting this braid in because I don't want 6 million strings at the end of my bracelet. And then I take these 3, and again, I make a braid. When you're done braiding, you can knot it if you don't want the braid to come out. I'm going to do mine fairly quickly. Again, I'm going to put the glue on to anchor my bracelet down, and then I'm going to quickly braid. And again, with this side, quickly braid. And when you're done, then you're ready to tie off your bracelet. So I'm going to attach, for this bracelet, I'm going to have 2 knots. I'm going to have one that's, I'll do it on my less dominant hand so I can tie the knots with that. And I'm just going to attach one braid to another braid and tie that in a knot. And then my second braid. Oops. And make another knot. You can cut off the excess once you have your knots. And there we have a bracelet that we've weaved on our own looms at home. You can make one for all your friends, and when quarantine is over, you can give them out as presents.